Welcome everybody back to our Christmas marathon. We still hope that you survived the family holidays, and we also hope that you're open for some deep talk about a cool band, about the development and foundation of Oh Hiroshima, and also a little bit about how Jakob perceives the development of post-rock in general. So Jakob, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, a wonderful thing. Jakob, we always ask the first things, always the same thing. So, is there any kind of band, shirt, merch from Oh Hiroshima or from any of your friends that you would like to pluck right here, right now? And I'll give you a moment to think about it while I pluck good old Baroness.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, I got that in a show here.
I got nothing on me, but if you want some Hiroshima merch, you should go to the Pelagic Records website and you'll find some T-shirts and stuff. So,
Well, you have something in the back there. You have
oh yeah,
the record.
That's right. I got.
Oh, what a coincidence! It actually is. We didn't talk about it.
All things shining.
Yeah, it's all things shining. The record, which is already out for more than half a year when this is out here.
Yeah, sure.
So it's your first one in Pelagic. So how did that deal come about? Because before that, you've been like 3-4 albums on Napalm Records?
Yeah, it was like Napalm contacted us after we released, like a year after we released our second album, In Silence We Yearn, and they re-released it on vinyl, and then also our first record on vinyl. And then we released 2 records with them in fall. Yeah. And then that collaboration ended, so we were on the lookout for a new label. And, I've known about Pelagic for a long time, and they always put out great stuff. So, I emailed them and a bunch of other labels, and the ones that were interested, we thought that Pelagic was absolutely the one for us. So we were very excited that because we had already finished the record, so we could send it to them and they could listen to it right away. They didn't have to, take a shot in the dark what kind of album we had, and they were very excited for it. So it felt very natural, and we're very happy so far with the collaboration.
Yeah, and I think on the one hand, you're a perfect fit for the roster, and on the other hand, you also add something to it. I think Oh Hiroshima has a certain way of developing and writing songs and records that is a little different from some of the other Pelagic bands, but nevertheless fits very nicely. We'll talk about that in a moment. But of course, it's Christmas time. I have to ask, how are you going to spend the Yuletide holidays this year?
Well, this year I'm gonna celebrate with my mother and father will come and visit me and my family, and I'll have a couple of weeks off. So
a couple of weeks. I'm jealous.
Yeah, I'm actually working as a teacher, so
me too. But I have to teach until the 20th.
Oh, really? Yeah, me too. But then I got some weeks for myself and the kids.
How many weeks do you have? We have two and a bit.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
So that's, pretty good.
Cool. I have to ask you that question because although I think you've been asked that 1,000 times already, why did you choose the name of Oh Hiroshima? I mean, it already implies sad boy music.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we have been asked that question before, and the answer isn't very exciting. It's just, when the band started, it was our former guitarist, Leif, who kind of kicked things off. It was his solo project, and then he invited me quickly, and we became like the core of the band in the beginning. And he already had the name for the project, so I just tagged along. So I don't know if he ever really explained it to me. I think he just, he thought it sounded cool and it would be fitting for sad boy post-rock, I guess.
I would say it fits, although I would not agree with the sad boy part.
Ah,
I think it fits to your. I think it fits to your sound. Um, it's also interesting now with the last few records, you've come back into a kind of steady rhythm. You were very productive at the beginning. I think it was like 3 records in a little bit more than 2 years, if I remember correctly. And then in between, the next two took some time. I think it was 2 records in something like 8 years or so. And now for the last few years, you've picked it up a clear and big notch again. Um, and now comes my question. You have kicked it up with speed and productivity again, even though there was a pandemic. But before that, when we didn't have a pandemic, I'm very sure you were not lazy, but how did the gaps come about?
Yeah, I think actually, a little bit of laziness was part of it for sure. We were, I mean, 4 young guys, taking it not that seriously at the time.
Mhm.
Um, so the first 2 records, that era of the band, it was more like a side project for us, and we didn't really do that many shows. We did some around our second album, In Silence We Yearn, around Sweden, but there wasn't a lot of interest. And yeah, we didn't have any like record label contacting us or anything like that. So we kept it kind of low key. It was just a fun project for us to be doing. But then when we started to attract attention, our second album started to get some hits on YouTube and so on. And
Deservedly.
yes, thank you. And yeah, couple record label Napalm contacted us, and we got more streams, and we started to get suggestions for tours and shows and so on, and that kind of triggered us to pick up the pace, and things have been going well since then, and we kind of felt that we have a lot of in recent years we have a lot of creativity. I don't know if it's something about, for me, I got a couple of kids now, and you see your kind of frame of spare time shrinking
Mhm.
drastically. I think that kind of prompted for me to just, okay, I don't got that much time to do music, so I really want to make it count, and I kind of
Mhm.
cut off the other things that I was doing before that with my spare time, and felt I really want to focus on this, and started playing a lot more guitar, and felt a lot more inspired, and felt I became a better musician as well during this period. So yeah, something like that.
To make it clear for everybody who doesn't know the band constellation, it's basically Jakob and his drummer Oscar. And Jakob, you basically do all the other instruments, if I understand it correctly.
Yeah, we were a four-piece back when we released our second album, but then 2 of the guys have dropped off after that. So first, like our other guitar player, so then I just played all the guitars on the next album, and then our bass player left the band, and I took up the bass duties as well, and have been in charge more or less for song ideas and arranging the songs. And my brother plays the drums, and we kind of, I send him the tracks, and we try them out live in the rehearsal space, and he kind of gives feedback and so on. But that's kind of how it developed. It just kind of happened. But now I think we're quite comfortable with this constellation, and it's been like 2 albums now where it's just me and my brother. So we found ways to work with as just a 2-piece, and it's also fun. There's a lot more room for me to do whatever I want, and also to try to become a better composer and think about the big picture. Because I usually, when I write something, I sit at home and play something on the guitar, I immediately think about what the other instruments could play around that. So I really enjoy trying to explore that, and trying to become better at kind of theoretically thinking about what could be a good match, and then trying it out in the rehearsal space or making demos and so on.
There are two questions that come up to me here immediately. Like, first, do you think it's also easier for you because it's only your brother and it's of course a different constellation? You know, it's different. You know, having your brother as a different as a drummer is different as having somebody else.
Sure, absolutely, and I think it might be because when it comes to composing, our roles are a little bit uneven, but he does a lot of other things. He makes all our music videos and, you know, takes like the photos and does all that kind of stuff. But we communicate really well, and we always played music together since we were teens, been in different bands together. So I mean, there's not a single person on earth that I know better musically, and it's, you know, for us it's been really easy. No, it's not been like a Oasis relationship or something like that.
So I hope so. And the second question that I immediately thought of when you say like you think of a bigger picture, do you think of songs or are you already thinking of bigger picture in the sense of records?
Everything all at once, I think. I got this, you know. I usually I'm always thinking like 10 steps ahead when it comes to music, which is a bit strange for me because I hate planning in everything when it comes to everything else in life. I don't want to know what I'm going to do next summer or something like that. That makes me really stressed. I want like this clean schedule, and that's the most comfortable for me. But when it comes to music, I'm right now I'm thinking 2-3 records ahead. What I'm gonna do, what kind of direction should we take the band, and I have a lot of song ideas that should I go this direction now or this direction, and so on. So I don't know why. It's just something about music that does that to me.
Is that maybe because music is the best available route out? You know, a little bit of escapism?
Probably, yeah, sure. You know, as I said, I'm a teacher with kids, family, and a house to care of. So I think music has become more and more valuable to me actually over the years, and you really feel that need to express yourself and to kind of take things out of the mundane and try to make something bigger out of it. So absolutely, I think so.
You have spoken about the moment when things started to kick off for Oh Hiroshima, when you got more streams on the internet, when people started to pay attention to what you were doing. Would you say that for the post-rock genre, the internet and the 24/7 availability of too many songs, is it nevertheless a good thing for the genre, or is it maybe a curse?
I think when we started out, it was like at the peak of like second wave of post-rock, and all these bands, Mogwai and Explosions in the Sky and so on, they were really, you know, making a lot of waves. And back then, like the internet was this huge thing for the genre. I think for me and Leif, who started the band, we were always, you know, digging into different obscure forums and trying to. And there was a lot of like demo material and self-released records that I had, you know, this huge collection of MP3s with, you know, post-rock bands, and it was really something about like exploring, like the internet is like so vast, and something about finding stuff there. I think it was kind of adventures in some ways. So, and that I think really kind of helped the genre to push through and to reach a wider audience. But today, I don't know really. Maybe it's more of a curse now that, everyone has the ability to record more easily and cheaper, so on, and everyone can put their music out online. So of course there's not that much room for all of the bands. But I also think that like the genre is spreading worldwide more and more.
Yeah.
People who are, I don't know, I think it's connected to societal changes also over the world, where people get a higher economical standard and they can start to think about other things than surviving, and start to think about music, and they explore new things. So yeah, I think it's a bit of both, probably.
You have been mentioning that second wave of post-rock bands, of Mogwai, probably also bands like Mono or Godspeed You Black Emperor. You mentioned Explosions in the Sky. I would add Do Make Say Think. And many of those bands from that second wave relied, I don't want to say heavily, but strongly on the usage of loud versus quiet elements, especially those bands that were closely connected to, for example, post-metal. You as a band are not that much, at least from my understanding, you are not that much into loud versus quiet. You're more about the different paces and tempi in between. Is that my imagination, or is it also really something that you set out for?
I don't think I thought about it in that way before, but there's something to that, I think. Because from the beginning, we were more interested in, I think with our first 3 records are pretty post-rock, but it's also very obvious that we listen to a lot of other music. With those records, there's a lot of like indie rock in there and so on, and we were never really into this really quiet parts. We were interested in kind of keeping the energy and keeping it interesting. And that has been growing for me, especially with our last 2 records. I think that I want things to feel interesting, and that doesn't mean that there's has to be a lot of things happening, but some kind of interesting something needs to be interesting. In the recording all the way. And I also kind of like when a song feels like a song. It's not. I kind of dislike. Some bands can do it really well, but like when you feel like, did a new song begin now, or is it the same song? I don't really appreciate that feeling. I want every song to feel like it's one song, and I enjoy a lot of songs that are that way. I'm very intrigued by artists that can make a song with like three chords all the way, and they kind of play like the same drum pattern all through it, but it still feels interesting and intriguing and so on. So those kind of things inspires me. But I think a bit with our latest record, there's maybe a little bit more of the quiet, loud dynamic, but not as with the early second wave post-rock bands.
There is also that one track on the record which basically defies my statement. It's not the last one, but the penultimate one, the one before. Can't think. Wait, I'll look it up. Just a second. I'll tell you which one. It is not Swans in a Field. I know that. It's Leave Us Behind, where I had the feeling, okay, here we have a more eruptive side, but it's still not, it's not as shriekingly harsh as other parts, which is, as other bands, which I really think is interesting, because we all know that, of course, if you take away one part of the spectrum at the top, one part at the bottom, it lessens the available possibilities. But whenever listening to any of your records, I never had the feeling, okay, now it's becoming boring or now it's repetitive. How much effort do you have to put in to always keep the songs and every record fresh for you and for your audience?
A lot of effort, I think, with the latest records, at least. Like I mentioned before, with the first records, the first three records, I would say, it was more like now, okay, now we have enough songs for a record. And our first records are pretty short. They're both under 40 minutes. So it's more like, okay, we have enough song for record. Let's record them. We have 6 songs and they fit together, and this could be a short record. But for the latest 2 records, we took a lot more time to work on the songs, and I think that's also an effect of us being a duo, because we work more with demos and recording beforehand, and then you can take more time to figure out and change things and mix things up in different ways. And that's made us really want to use it to make the songs as good as possible, because the big challenge, of course, when you're just a duo, I think post-rock should be played by a band, actually. It's much easier to create this flow and to be in the rehearsal space and play the song together, like we used to back in the days. That was a lot of fun, and as soon as everybody got their parts down, it was kind of okay, the song is finished. But now, as we can't do that, I think we need to put a lot more time into and effort into the details and everything, and especially with what I think you were talking about here earlier about the flow of the songs. That's really important to me, even if there's kind of this break between a heavy part and a softer part. There needs to be a flow. We want it to feel like it's woven into one piece very clearly. So
you have mentioned that you already had the record done when you were looking for labels and that you sent it to Pelagic. I mean, as much as I know the guys and people behind it, but the question always is like, did they tell you like, okay, maybe change the tonality here, maybe rearrange the track listing? How much influence did they have on the record?
I would say 0, actually, because
that's the best possible answer.
Yeah, they were just like, this is a great record, we want to release it, let's talk. So there was nothing about that. I even asked them, emailed them about kind of what singles we were going to choose, what songs to release first, but I don't think I even got an answer there. So it was, I would say 0. But that's been our experience before also with Napalm. They didn't say anything about the music. They had maybe some suggestions when it came to which songs to release first, but it was kind of up to us, and maybe asked about the artwork a bit. But for this record, nothing. They just went with everything we sent them. So that's a pretty good sign to me.
Definitely. We have now spoken about record labels, and I mean, like, there are a few labels worldwide that one should probably mention when talking about post-rock. You have like Temporary Residence in the US, Constellation in Canada, Dunk in Belgium, Pelagic in Germany. How important are these and maybe some other labels, in your opinion, for the development of post-rock?
Well, I've never really been that acquainted with different labels. It was more when, as a music lover or a music listener, it actually never really occurred to me to check in. I know some people they know about all the labels and they use the labels to check out new bands. yeah, it's smart people. I've never been that smart, so I never understood this. It was more when we started to get the possibility to work with labels that I kind of looked them up. So when our collaboration with Napalm ended, I had to, really try to. I was on Spotify checking out what kind of labels had released this CD and this, and tried to find what labels to contact and so on. So I don't really know that much about labels, but of course, when you get a label like Pelagic that are so clearly focused on this kind of music, and it's a label that I mean, people who love labels seem to love, and they are in high regard when it comes to their releases. They don't just pump things out. There's always a quality to it. I think that really keeps people interested, and I mean, I think post-rock as a genre also it's kind of like right now. It feels like it's in a stage where it needs to kind of move somewhere. Something needs to kind of happen to make it interesting again. I think that there's a lot of people listening to it, but it's not like when Explosions and Mogwai and these bands, or like in the early 90s, the like first wave of post-rock. And so that's also something. Not that I think about it in that way, but to me it's important to try out new things. There are some bands that are great at keeping with their style and making album after album where it sounds really great, but I don't think I could do that actually. So I need to try to find new paths for the band, and find new influences and things to kind of incorporate into our sound. So yeah, it's interesting times, I think, for post-rock to see where the genre kind of takes off.
Just two things that I want to ask here is, like, first of all, when you were looking for a label, you said you were going through Spotify. So did you basically make a list of your favorite records and then look up who did it, or how do I have to imagine that?
I was just checking like bands that they released records the year before that or something, and just try to that I enjoy and that I feel had some kind of connections to us and our type of music.
So you were looking for bands that were sound-wise related
that could have connections with labels that would be fitting for us, and also bands that are kind of in the same size as us, a bit bigger, a bit smaller. So,
of course, then I have to ask which were the Pelagic bands, or which bands were it that brought you to Pelagic band?
Yeah, I think Pelagic.
Let me guess.
Yeah, sure.
F.
Yeah, sure. But they released the records. I knew about Pelagic before they joined, because Pelagic was one of the labels that I knew about beforehand, and had known about for a long time because of.
Did you look up Brut?
What did you say?
Brut from France. Brut.
Yeah, I didn't know they were on Pelagic, but I found out.
And then the last one that I would think of would be Lost in Kiev.
Yeah, sure. I knew about that band, so they were probably like on the list of bands that I checked out, and they were on Pelagic as well. So
you have been saying, and that's the second question, but you have been saying that there needs to be bands that move the genre a little bit. Are there records from this year or the last 1 or 2 years where you say, like, okay, those are game changers?
that's a good question, actually. I don't know really. I actually listen to a lot more other kinds of genres myself. I don't listen to a lot of post-rock, and I think for me it's also more it's interesting to check out bands to see what they're doing and so on. But like influence wise, and for inspiration, I always find it more that I feel more inspired when I listen to other types of music. So I don't know really. Actually, I think it's really hard, and I don't know if I have that good of a grasp of the whole post-rock scene now.
Difficult, too fast.
It's difficult, but just from our perspective, I felt like our first records we kind of rode on that second wave of post-rock, and we tried to make our own thing of that. But now I really felt with the last records, and we're writing for new material as we speak as well, and that as a band we want to try to broaden our sounds and branch out into other kinds of sounds and styles and so on.
It's interesting. When I prepared for this record, I once again looked at that old article by Simon Reynolds, who described post-rock, or who coined the term when he was talking about Dark Psychosis and their Hex record. And I also looked it up to be able to quote it. He says that post-rock is a genre using rock instrumentation for non-rock purposes, using guitars as facilitators of timbre and textures rather than riffs and power chords. Do you think that definition or that coinage would apply to Oh Hiroshima? Are you a band using rock instrumentation for non-rock purposes?
No, not at all, actually. I mean, I guess he was talking about like the Tortoise and Slint and other early 90s bands. But we've used power chords on all our records. So apparently
That's
not.
why I ask.
And I look at us. I look at us as a rock band. I mean, we're in the rock genre. It's rock music. So I wouldn't. But I think if people heard like All Things Shining for the first time and hadn't heard about us before, I think they would pin us down as a post-rock band. They would probably see the influences and see a lot of post-rock in the record, but maybe not that clearly.
There is one thing which basically completely denies anybody trying to use that definition onto Oh Hiroshima, because first of all, you got vocals. Was the usage of vocals a clear decision, or did it just happen?
It kind of just happened. In the beginning of the band, again, most things just happened. Did things, and so didn't really think about them or kind of had this made a discussion or anything. I was in another band back then, like indie rock band, and I sang in that band. And when we started to make the songs, I just put vocals on certain parts, and so vocals have been with us since our first demos. It just felt natural. We never really thought about it that much. Then with the later records, we sometimes I had like the approach that I record. I'm more interested in playing the guitar. Like I think with our record Oscillation, that was kind of my mindset. But for this record, it was more kind of in the direction that I felt I wanted to explore vocals a bit more than I had before. But there were the bands we were listening to when we started Hiroshima. They also used, Mogwai used vocals, and Sigurus used vocals, and EF used vocals. So it felt kind of natural.
Although Mogwai don't often do it, but sometimes they do.
Oh,
Yes, that's true.
yeah.
And it's also interesting when we listen to the vocal style of your record, or also records. To me, it always sounds A, very British, and B, very turn of the 80s into the 90s. Are there any bands from that period that influence you?
Interesting that you say that, because I think that's for me is kind of the pinnacle era of music, like the break between the 80s and the 90s. I grew up listening to Nirvana and Sonic Youth, Dinosaur Jr., My Bloody Valentine. I love those kind of bands that were active in that era. So that it's pretty good that you picked that up, actually. What was the other thing you said about?
Yeah, it's just the way. Are there like particular? And you've already said that there are particular influences, right? So like,
yeah, absolutely. And I like these bands that kind of I love Pavement as well, and this really kind of slacker band, but also the bands that things very very seriously. So I don't know, maybe we'll landed in somewhere in between there.
And that also in some way refers to something that you've said and our denial of Reynolds' definition of post-rock, that it's not applicable to Oh Hiroshima. Basically, when listening to your vocals, and also sometimes to the arrangements of the songs, you are basically an indie rock band, aren't you?
Yeah, I think for me that's where I come from. When we started the band, I had the indie rock band that was kind of my main band. That was kind of the music that I listened to, and I still listen to a lot of that music that I mentioned. Yeah, you said British as well, and I always been
sometimes, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes, and I get that too, because I think there's a lot of really great British bands, and I mean, Radiohead is a big favorite, and I love it.
Please don't say Oasis.
No, but I actually think I've been listening, but they got some good songs going, actually. So
of course, they got a few good.
I'm not a hater.
No. They have.
I don't think I'll pay for the tickets this summer.
Unless somebody invites me, I'm not gonna go.
Sure,
but let's get back to that. Like, yeah, I was thinking of Radiohead. I was also an early Radiohead. I also was, apart from his political opinions, I was thinking of Morrissey, you know, the Smiths.
Oh, I love the Smiths. Absolutely. Yeah. And Johnny Marr, like I haven't, I've listened to the Smiths, but not fanatically. But I think Johnny Marr's guitar playing has always influenced me a great deal. Because he has this kind of unique style, and like that kind of technique, I can't do it, you know, even close to as good as he can. But he has this technique where you play like the three high strings on the guitar, and you have like a picking pattern, and you move around. And I use that a lot, like really a lot. And they're kind of, I think they're still not a band that sounds like the Smiths. It's kind of this very unique style with Johnny Marr's guitar playing, and this kind of rhythm section that's playing very tight but kind of loose also and playful. And then not really that much in the mid frequencies, but except for Morrissey's voice and his singing style, also very unique. So I mean, that band is very special, and yeah, one of the greats, definitely.
Yeah. And before anybody says, yes, we are aware of the horrible things that Morrissey has said.
Yes, absolutely.
Nevertheless, you know, in that band, there were more people than just Morrissey. And I mean, like, if you want to listen to the Smiths, you don't even have to pay for it. You can listen to it on YouTube Music without a subscription, and you can get that stuff. So, you know, if you want to listen. but don't take away the importance of the music of that band. Whatever the guy sang, we can talk about that, but musically, that band is untouchable. And something that a lot of people also forget, and you've also already mentioned that indie rock thing of the USA of the 90s. I mean, like, a lot of people try to put bands like Tortoise and Slint into this post-rock category. They definitely were predecessors, but if you ask anybody from those bands, they don't give a shit if you call them indie rock or post-rock or whatever.
Sure.
And that is also probably something that you would agree to, right? I think there is not really a band who sets out and says like, oh, let's make a post-rock record.
No.
Or have you ever sat down and said like...
Yeah, I think we actually did in the beginning. It was kind of like, okay.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Absolutely. You don't care. After a while, you just... I mean, when you start the band, maybe you have to find some kind of common denominator or something. But after that, you just do what you do, and you see where it ends up. So, of course, and I think even a lot of like the second wave post-rock bands kind of shunned that label also. And for me, it's like I wouldn't argue with someone calling us post-rock. I don't really care. It's like call us whatever you want. But I think you mentioned those early bands. I think because this discussion, what is post-rock, and those first kind of predecessors are kind of different from what people are expecting from post-rock bands now.
Very different, isn't it?
Very different. But I think there's been from like the second wave post-rock. That's more of like what people think about when it comes to post-rock nowadays.
Definitely. I mean, like if you listen to Mogwai and stuff, that's definitely what people.
And Godspeed and everybody. So I think it's totally legit to talk about post-rock and mention. I don't think it's like, oh, you can't. It's impossible to say what post-rock is. I think people recognize when there's post-rock elements to band or a song.
And I think we are now also at a point where we can use that term again, because I mean, there was this certain time, somewhere around the early 2010s, when that term, I don't want to say was an insult, but when people tried to stay the hell away from being called a post-rock band, just like at the beginning of the millennium, people didn't want to be called an emo band, right? So, nevertheless, it's a soundscape, a certain sound that is definable. We have been talking about a little bit more eruptive things on the new record, but in generally you not being one of those hugely quiet versus loud bands. And that is, of course, something that is very often connected to post-metal, like even wider apart, even harsher eruptions. Is that something that you yourself listen to, like Neurosis, ISIS, stuff like that?
Yeah, sure. I'm a huge Cult of Luna fan. They're one of my favorite bands, and been listening to them for a long time. So I'm also very happy to be able to work with some of the guys now with our latest records. So that's a band that definitely have influenced me a lot. And actually, the song that you mentioned before, "Leave Us Behind," to me, that's kind of like a Cult of Luna rock song.
There is something about that. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So I've been listening to those kind of bands. When it comes to metal, I'm kind of picky. I've never been a metalhead, but there are a lot of metal bands that I really enjoy. But I'm kind of picky when it comes to metal, and I think so about post metal as well. I'm still, a lot of bands sound kind of like the same. But the whole genre is very, very interesting. There's a lot of different kinds of bands, and some are really, really good that I enjoy a lot. Definitely.
One last question before we come to the infinite to the quickfire round at the end. Something that, at least on the last record, I have not heard. You didn't do any samples, although that is a huge thing in post-rock. Is that lack of samples because you have vocals?
Yeah, I think we never really thought about doing that.
Mm-hmm.
It may be because of the vocals. Most bands that they use samples, I think, are the vocalist bands without a vocalist.
Yeah.
We actually tried it one time. Was the last song on our record, Oscillation.
Mm-hmm.
It was a part where we tried to put something in there, but it just felt kind of phony, actually. So we cut it out. But you know, I really enjoyed the Godspeed You Black Emperor.
Yeah,
how they use that samples and so on. It's very intriguing.
Yeah,
it's like they use it less and less also. So
they use it less and less, and they replace it more and more, I think, with droney parts, which is also a very interesting thing.
Sure. But no, I can't really see, and especially now with the direction we've taken, I think we're even further away from using that kind of.
That's true.
Yeah.
So, Jakob, first of all, thanks for all the insight into your perception of post-rock, into your perception of the genre itself. But of course, also during this Christmas time, nobody gets away from us without going through the furious and however you want to call it, quickfire round at the end. You will always get two alternatives and have to choose one of them.
All right.
I tried to also come up with enough Swedish couples.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Let's start off with something American. You get two records by If These Trees Could Talk. Which one would you rather listen to right now? Red Forest or Above the Earth, Below Forest?
I would pick Red Forest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Any reason why?
Because that's a record I listen to. I don't know if I listen that much to the other record.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of easy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I should pick the other then.
No. You it's your choice.
Sure. All right.
As we've been talking about game changers, for me this year there was a game changer in post-rock. But maybe you yourself decide. Which record by A Swarm of the Sun do you like more, The Rifts or An Empire?
I really enjoyed An Empire, so I'm gonna say that record actually. Sounds really huge and really great record.
And that to me is the game changer this year. I think there will not be a better post-rock record, or I think there was not a better post-rock record in 2024. 65 Days of Static versus Maserati.
Oh, that's hard actually.
Yeah, I never said it would be easy.
Yeah, I listened to both of those bands a lot when we started out, but I will go with Maserati actually. And they're so cool, and you can hear a lot of Maserati influences on our first record actually. Those kind of like the very delayed guitars with the
That's why I was asking. I also would have guessed that you would pick Maserati.
Sure.
Back to Sweden. Breach versus Cult of Luna.
Breach was a really cool band, but definitely Cult of Luna for me.
We've been speaking about Mogwai, so I'll give you Rock Action versus Hardcore Will Never Die, But You Will.
Hardcore Will Never Die. I think that's my favorite Mogwai record. So
it's very difficult for me.
I'm glad you picked that one.
It's very difficult for me because I love both records.
Yeah.
And I've seen them since Rock Action, I've seen them basically with every record.
Yeah, I haven't seen them in a long time. I'm going to see them now in February. So we're looking forward to that.
Being an old guy, I would say rock action. Come on.
Yeah, sure.
Coming back to Sweden, PG Lost, Key versus.
Oh, that one's tricky actually. Both those records are really good and kind of different to each other. I'll go with Versus actually, because they really developed their sound with that record, and there's some really Versus. There's some really with tracks on that record.
Yeah, so with PG Lost, we are already in the pelagic realms. So I'll give you The Masters from Japan, Mono. Hymn to the Immortal Wind versus For My Parents.
I don't really know if I can remember like which songs are on those two records. I can't really say actually.
Okay.
I'll have to pass that one. No. Sorry.
Yeah. No, all good. We've been speaking about F already. So I'll give you Ceremonies versus Morning Golden Morning.
Which one is the one with that song, Bells Bleeding Blue? Is it called like?
No, you got me. I'll look it up for you. Ceremonies.
I think Ceremonies.
Bells Bleeding. It's Ceremonies. It's Bells Bleed and Bloom.
Yeah, I'll pick that one.
So that sounds as if that's one of your favorite tracks by F.
Yeah, I actually, it was one of the bands that got me into post-rock. So, I'm when it comes to that band, I'm more like the guy who thinks their fourth demo is their greatest stuff. But the Ceremony is a very, very pleasant record.
Let's step away a little bit from Pelagic and from Scandinavia. Nordic Giants versus Sleep Makes Waves.
I haven't listened to any of those bands a lot, actually. So I can't really decide. Sorry.
You don't have to. If you are unsure about it.
Yeah, I'll have to pass that one. I don't know those bands.
I hope that you will be able to decide on the next one. Emmanuel. Hibernation versus In Passage.
I would say Hibernation because of the production. Really, it's not production.
Yeah, that is like peak Emmanuel, right? Yeah, I would say so. I would also have chosen Hibernation.
Oh. These are tricky questions,
Yeah, I never said I'm here to be the nice guy.
Yeah, kind of like you, like the post-rock bands. I can't keep up with it.
And for all those who also want to know a little bit more about post-rock, there is a book that I can recommend. And I even got it from the Pelagic shop a few years ago. I'm not sure if I still have it, but I'll try to come as close as possible. It's called Storm Static Sleep. And if you ever get a chance to read this book, where it was from, really
Never
good.
heard of it.
It is. It's already a few years old.
Yeah.
But it definitely gives you a good insight into development of a genre. And
it's a book about post-rock.
It is a book only about post-rock. It tells you where it started. For me, the author goes a little bit too far away when he includes Talk Talk. But I think when he goes into the 90s and into the early zeros, I would agree with a lot of the things he says. And he even goes into the 2010s. We could talk about that. But definitely a good book to check out if you want to know a little bit more. So as Christmas is basically over when this is out, maybe this is something for your next birthday. Definitely a worthwhile book. £11 when I bought it back in the day. So everybody, enjoy the rest of your day. And Jakob, your chance for final last words.
Thanks for having me. Great to talk to you, and catch us on the road. We got a lot of tour dates during spring 2025, so hope to see you guys on the road.
We hope to see you on stage. So Jakob, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.